Excuse me?
Excuse you, what?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the post-show live stream where we're going to talk about what just happened on The Bachelor Week 8 Hometowns. And boy, was this an episode. Probably the best episode of the season. Hi, everybody. And before we get into the discussion about everything that went down, holy smokes. Couple of things. Number one, please, no posting spoilers in the chat. No outright spoilers or anything like that. Sleuthing, ideas, opinions are always welcome. Number two, be kind to each other. Wow. I gotta say, this was a great episode. This was an episode that we saw where the drama was worth it. This season, so much drama, so much going on, a little too much drama, but here tonight with the Victoria date, actually, interesting drama. And I don't know how to deconstruct that. Was it because there were actually chill, good hometown dates beforehand, and then a mega, drama at the end with Victoria, or was just everything with Victoria so good that, it just was great. So, I don't know. Excuse you, what, Fantake? I know. The audacity. And there was almost for a second there was some pushback from Peter, but then he went back to, I'm sorry, I might have taken her side a little bit. But, holy smoke. So, how did Victoria get a rose? I think Peter was thinking with an extra head there. I don't know. I mean, look, Peter, at the end of the day, Peter's the only one who can tell you why he got a rose, Victoria got a rose, but I think he's interested in a lot extra when it comes to Victoria. So maybe, I don't know. Yeah. So who went home? Kelsey went home. He gave roses at the end of Hometowns to Hannah Ann, then Madison, and then Victoria. And a lot went down. So there was Marissa, Peter's ex, who showed up and warned Peter about Victoria on her hometown, which was the last hometown of the night of the four. And Peter then talked to Victoria about it before they even walked through the door of the hometowns, and it all just kind of blew up, and Peter never even met the family. But then Victoria came back and visited Peter in his hotel room, and I guess that was enough. So, when do you predict the finale will be? Well, let's look at the calendar here. So we've got maybe, so next Monday will be Final 3, then the Monday after that. So it'll be the first week of March or something, unless they do anything different. But next week will be Final 3, then it will come down to the finale. So they might do a 2-part finale or something. They often do 2-part finales. The second and third, I guess, based off of what the timeline usually is, but... Yes, I don't even like Kelly or any other women for Bachelorette. They're all annoying except for Madison, and she's probably going to get the final rose. Yes, so now we're in the time also where we can talk about Bachelorette too. We're getting down to the final 3. Usually Bachelorette, most likely they won't announce anything like that until the finale, until the very final episode. When is the women tell all? That's usually. Did they not say anything about the women tell all? I guess maybe they didn't. I don't know, unless I missed it. But the women tell all will be before the finale. Usually they do the tell all around now, when it gets down to the final three. Like Peter, for example, on The Bachelorette was not at the women or the men tell all, right? Unless I'm getting something, unless they combine it, maybe they combine it. I don't know. But there won't be a talk about Bachelorette until or there won't be an announcement for the Bachelorette until the finale, usually. So I'm guessing it won't be until exactly then. They have announced it earlier beforehand, but we won't know until then. So it'll still be a couple of weeks before we know that. But we can start discussing who we think would be great for it. And I'll fill you in. I do have a video idea for this where I'm going to discuss who I think are the options that could possibly be considered for the Bachelorette. 3 from this season and 4 people from outside of the season. And for the 4 people from outside of the season are either people who I've seen pop up on like Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, or something like that, or people who I think could do it. Like, for example, from this season, Madison could be a contender for that if she doesn't win. And I'll kind of go into why I think that. But Maddie and Peter are a lock. Yeah, well, certainly Maddie's not going anywhere. Maddie's become kind of the center point of the season, at least for the next episode. Because the whole drama is going to be revolved around the virginity stuff. Now there are a few things we know that I'm almost certain, and I'll probably go into this in the preview breakdown, into how much detail the next episode is going to include Madison's virginity post. Because take a look at this photo. What do you notice about this photo? What Madison's wearing is what I'm thinking. And it's the same dress that she wears at the rose ceremony that just happened. And we know that in the preview before that she talks about her virginity and all that sort of stuff. And we've also seen this photo of her walking away. It's all going to happen at the end of the rose ceremony. So I imagine all the sort of stuff about virginity and all this walking away business, it's happening at the end of the rose ceremony that we just saw. All that business where Victoria learns about the virginity and is able to talk about it later. All that's going to happen at the beginning of the next episode. So expect that. Any idea that Madison is going to walk away or anything like that, I don't know. I think it's questionable at this point. We're just gonna see her get upset about something, which is more intrigue for next episode. It's a different outfit. It's the same outfit that she wore at the rose ceremony. Different back of the dress? How do we know that? Did we see the back of the dress? Different outfits, bro? I don't think so. I think this is the same one. I mean, I'll take a look at it. No, but as far as I'm thinking, it's the same one. Well, but it also makes sense to me, like in terms of narrative, right? No, like maybe you're right. Maybe it's a different back of the dress, but it seems to look very similar, and it makes sense to me that something would happen. But hey, look, you know what? You might be right. Hey, I'll take your guys' word on it. But maybe the backs were different. I'll definitely look into that if we in the episode, but. But if the back is different, that's important information too. If the back is different, then we know that whatever upsets her to walk away is not what happens at the rose ceremony. But the front of the dress is the same when she talks about her virginity. The front of the dress is definitely the same. And James, thank you for the super chat. Are you covering Bachelor Listen to Your Heart? I absolutely will be. The one sort of question for me is how much music is going to be involved, and there's all sorts of like YouTube copyright stuff with that, but I'll definitely be doing something for that. Absolutely. So shorts and pants, interesting. Okay, I'll keep a lookout for that stuff. I'll definitely be looking into it because that's very important information too. Because if she's talking about virginity and all that stuff in that dress, yeah, it could be from a interview thing. Anyway, like, okay, I'll definitely be looking at it though. Because it tells us something. It tells us a lot if it's not in the recent rose ceremony that she walks away. That was my first impression looking at it just in the brief time that we saw the end of the episode. But that is some good stuff to figure out. If the outfits are different, absolutely. And Think Story. How many windmills will happen this season? Thank you for the super chat. How many windmills will happen this season? I don't know. 3 fantasy suites times 4. You do the math. Where'd the dog go? I know. That's what I was asking all episode. So, yeah, Victoria made it. She made it. She made it another episode. I gotta think. So we've seen from the footage. I don't know where we go at this point. We're reaching the point where we're running out of footage. So in Fancy Pants, thank you for the super chat. Apart from sleuthing, who do you think would actually be the best partner for Peter, if any? Honestly, if we're going to talk about partners for Peter, who would be the most likely to make it long term? I'd say Hannah Brown. And like, that's my honest opinion. If we're thinking of who has had, up until this point, the strongest connection and the most investment from Peter, Hannah Brown. I think everything else with the women is messy. Obviously, like Victoria F and Peter, all like just take a look at how they've interacted all season, and none of that is healthy. And Hannah Ann, it's like so, it feels so, I don't know, still underdeveloped, I guess is the word. And with Madison, there's so many questions about what they both want in a relationship. Are they there? And if we're going to look at what appears to be happening in future episodes based off the previews, that Peter, gets intimate with at least another woman in the next fantasy suite, and that irks Madison. That's a rough way to start an engagement. So, do you think Madison's ultimatum is different than what from what Luke P did to Hannah? That's I think the difference between Luke and Madison is more in the way they've carried themselves up until this point than it is on where they are now in terms of like talking about faith and talking about wanting to save yourself for marriage or all that sort of stuff. And language is a big thing too. And I think ultimately Madison's been open to it, and if she walks away, I don't know. I think most importantly is how Madison has carried herself so far in the season, and how she's treated other people, at least according to the edit. And Alexis, thank you for the super chat. Have you seen the Venmo theory, the private accounts? No, I haven't. Is there a Venmo thing that's gone on this season? I haven't seen that theory. Is there like a Venmo between contestants or whatever that proves one person has like transferred money to Peter or something like that, or Peter's been like sending flowers via Venmo? Is Victoria adopted? I'm guessing because of the briefly seen shots of the parents. Christian K, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for the awesome vids. Worst vote off. Are you talking about who, like, elimination? Worst vote off. In Survivor history. Worst vote off in Survivor history. The person who was eliminated second in the recent Survivor episode, if you watched it. Really upset about that. So definitely think Madison walks off. That feels like a great storyline for the season, right? So it seems like that's the direction it's going. That Madison would walk off, like Peter sleeps with Hannah Ann or Victoria, and then we've seen in the previews that Peter talks about. He says, "I don't want this to be about sex, but I've been intimate with another woman," and he's probably talking to Madison about that because it's a very tough thing, and Madison's going to be talking about how difficult it is for her to move forward if Peter does do that, if he does end up having sex with another woman. And then she walks away and Peter goes after her, kind of thing. Or it could very well be that that upsets Madison. She doesn't walk away, or she stays. Peter asks her to stay. She does, but then eventually, once it gets to the final two, she says, okay, you know what? I've had some time to think on this and I can't do it. She leaves. Chris Harrison's like, okay, we just learned that Madison's left. And Peter's like, what? Because I was about to propose to her. And Mama Weber's like, bring her home. So when Peter's mom is talking about a girl, is it before the final rose? It very well could be. It legitimately could be not as dramatic that we think it might be. With Peter's mom saying, bring her home, it could literally be that part of the final two episode where Peter sits down with each of the women and his parents and family, and they, Peter's parents meet both of them, and once they're all gone, they all sort of dish to Peter what they think of the two women, and he says something, and Peter's mom goes, that's the girl, bring her home to us. The only sort of thing is that in that same shot, Peter looks like really confused. So Whenever you get to Mama Weber, bring her home. Please make a Les Mis reference. Bring him home. What do you think? When is the women tell all? It seems to be. Well, I don't know. They didn't mention it. Maybe they'll bring it up somewhere else, but sometimes they do that. Like with the surprise midweek episode that happened a couple weeks ago. They didn't really mention it. It just kind of came up. Logically, it's going to be next week. So, and Phil, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for supporting the stream. This season would have been perfect for ABC Cam. I know, always be crazy. This would have been his time to shine. With the Alea crashing the rose ceremony. He would understand that. He would understand what it's like to crash a group date when you're not invited. He would get it. What's your take on the recent news that Peter might have actually ended up with a producer? Love a good conspiracy theory. Love it. But I don't know. I don't buy it all that much. One, it would be crazy hard to sell, I think, at this point. I feel like they would have put more into it, like in the previews or something, set some of it up. We'd see more of the producer thrown in here and there in the season. Because if it comes out of nowhere, people will be like, what the heck? But also it could just be his handler. That's my gut. That's my gut, and also it makes sense to me that it's just his handler. Face reveal, 100K. So he definitely loves Maddie the most, but her family and her faith seem to be problematic. Yeah. So and look, it comes to a point where it's okay for Peter to, not be 100% sure on that quite just yet. But he needs to get sure on that very soon. This is if we're thinking logically, it's okay to think, all right, this is something I could get on with, but it's going to get to a point where you need to make that decision, and it's unfair for the other person to spring it on them so soon. For example, Sean Lowe on his season, from what I've read, I think it was from the one of the books, like the Bachelor Nation book. He said, or he came into Catherine, the eventual winner, spoiler alert, into her room or whatever. He asked the producers to see her the night before he was going to propose. And he spent about 15 minutes talking about Christianity and his faith and all that sort of stuff. And she sort of said, whoa, what the heck? Obviously this wasn't a problem for her, but it was a problem that the night before he was going to propose, he just dumped this stuff on top of her. And she's kind of right there. So if Peter's going to make a decision about whether or not this is something that is important to him, and he's okay going forward with, and he's willing to really invest himself in, he needs to do that soon. Otherwise, it's a bit of a jerk move. So, yes, for those asking, Kelsey went home. So I don't care about Peter at all. I just hope he ends up with anyone but Madison. She deserves better. And there's a lot of people who are really upset with the season. And I think mostly we've had almost no romance. It's been so much drama, no romance. What happened, for some reason didn't record and I missed it. So the gist of this episode is we had Hannah Ann's hometown first. It was pretty easy. The dad was kind of like a little bit resistant, but not as resistant as it seemed in the previews, where he said, just don't, like, hey, don't tell her you love her unless you absolutely mean it. And then Peter was like, I'm falling in love with you, to Hannah afterwards. Then we had Kelsey, and that was pretty easy. Madison was pretty easy too, though it was brought up that she was, saving herself for marriage. And then we got to Victoria, where they had their date. A woman, Peter's ex, came up to him and warned him about Victoria. They talked about it. It all blew up. And they didn't even get to meet the family before Peter was on his way back to the hotel. But Victoria came back, and I guess enough was said to get things back on track, and he chose to send Kelsey home. So Peter said he loves Hannah Ann. That's what the subtitle said. So yeah, and he also said he's in love with Madison too, but that was not to her face, I believe. If I remember correctly, it was in an interview segment with like the producers. So, and Priscilla, thank you for the super chat. Who in Bachelor Nation could be good pairing for Kelly? I'm thinking possibly Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson or Grocery Store Joe. Grocery Store Joe. That could be good. Yeah, I buy the Grocery Store Joe. I mean, I know they like him and they just sort of broke up and he's newly single, but I could buy that because they both seem fairly down to earth and chill. At least as I'm thinking about it now, I could buy that one. So Big Mike, Camp. No, I could buy the Grocery Store Joe one. Maybe Paradise. Maybe that's where they're destined to meet. So yeah, Joe would have to agree to go to Paradise with Kelly, and that's a possibility now. I could see Joe and Kendall both being on Paradise. Derek Peth for Kelly, maybe, but I mean, I don't know. Like, who are we to say? But I mean, it's fun to talk about. But I could see Joe and Kendall going on Paradise again, or I could see at least the producers reaching out to them for that, because that would be sort of good TV, right? Have them on, but not single and separate. Both Joe and Kelly in Chicago. But hey, there you go. Now we're making connections. So, hey, can anyone see me on here, or do I have to join? We can see you. We can see you. What do you think Chris tells Peter if it isn't Madison? If it isn't the Madison is saving herself for marriage? Honestly, that's the only. Well, I think it would be Madison is leaving or someone has left. That's my theory. I know there's people who have talked about like pregnancy, and I don't think that's what it would be at this point. But I mean, like, hey, I don't know. The theory that I have is that it would be Madison leaving, or she's gone, or something like that, or someone gone. But other than that, I honestly have no clue. And Rachel, thank you for the super chat. Were your final 3 and final 4 picks correct? Are you talking about my original final 4? Because that was not correct. But were your final 3 and final 4 picks from the previews? Yes. And those were simply footage-based picks. Like, we saw a pick from, or a clip from Victoria F's final 3 footage in one of the early previews, like the season previews for it. Right? Like, footage from the preview that they showed at the end of this episode was shown at the very beginning. So, and Tammy, thank you for the super chat. Victoria F is a snake. I called it from day one. Yeah, it's very this is a very like toxic relationship. There's not a lot of positive discussion, not a lot of like good things said to each other. It's all drama, all fighting, and unless there's footage that the Bachelor producers have kept locked away of them two having a completely healthy relationship, and they just kind of like sent it off into the vault, never to be seen again. This has been a horribly toxic relationship, and it's lasted way too long. Maybe he's the first guy who ends up with no one. They both reject him in the end. Chris Harrison comes in and says, "We've got some news, Peter. Both women have decided that they're going to reject you, so I'm sorry." Who do you think will be Bachelorette? I think it's going to be... Well, I don't know. But I have some thoughts on it, and I have a video that I'm going to put out on that probably this week after the... I'm going to try to fit it in either like Thursday, Friday area on who I think are options that might be considered for Bachelorette. 3 from this season and 4 from outside of the season. And I'll dish who I think is most like, who I think or who I would like for that. And it's someone from outside of the season, and probably the person from outside of the season that you think is most likely of it. So that's who I'm thinking. But people have said Kendall. People have said Kendall, absolutely, especially with the recent breakup of her and Grocery Store Joe. And Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Why are the girls living together again in preview? I'll break down all of that in the preview breakdown in 2 days. And I'll look further into that kind of stuff. They never live together. Hannah B, maybe you might be right. That being said, I'm just speculating here. I have no clue. I have no strong lead on that. But if it's Hannah B, I will tell you why I think it might be what I believe would be the strong reasoning why Hannah B would be it. But again, back to the women living together, they never do that. So I don't think they do like move back in together, unless they're in kind of the same hotel complex. But I'll review the preview and talk about all that in the preview breakdown coming up. And Tammy, thank you for the super chat. Bad Chad and Victoria F would be a great match. Bachelor in Paradise. So the one thing I'm wondering about that though, so like obviously Chad and Victoria F being a match most likely would come out of something like Bachelor in Paradise, right? But would they give Victoria the Luke P treatment in terms of Bachelor in Paradise, right? Because Luke P obviously was too villainized to ever make it to Bachelor in Paradise. And he probably also didn't want to. I would imagine there's a certain unwillingness for him to make it to Bachelor in Paradise. But ultimately, I wonder if the Bachelor producers decided, okay, let's just kind of take a break from that for a while. And I imagine they might do the same thing with Victoria. She's by far, like, it doesn't, you just look, like, put your feelings aside for her. You just look across Twitter, Instagram, all social media. Definitely the most hated person from the season. Arguably, I would think so. Yeah, sorry. So Jed and Victoria F. Okay. Yeah, that would be another great. Sorry. Sometimes I look away from the screen and then I come back and I see something, and I looked away from the screen and the first thing I saw was just like Jed and Victoria F in full caps. Same with like Jed though, you know. He was so vilified you wouldn't see him in paradise. At least so soon after Hannah Brown's season. I wonder if they do the same with Victoria F. It's kind of like, you're weighing, it would be really good drama, or would it just amount to nothing? And Andreas Martinez, thank you for the super chat. Went to Batch Live on stage yesterday. Lots of fun. Oh man, I'm jealous. Who is your bachelor? I know they've done different ones, Bachelor, Bachelorette for those events. They had Diggy, for example, was one of the Bachelor. And Shenny, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for being my Bachelor Sherlock Holmes. Thank you for watching and being my Bachelor Watson. Oh, Jed has a girlfriend? Well, that's never stopped him. Yeah, he does have a girlfriend. Or at least he was on Instagram with that like a few months ago or a month ago or something like that. Yeah, Chad is from JoJo's season. He's the one who went on Paradise. He got kicked off and he was like, F you, Chris Harrison. Going to Bachelor... Yeah, you should do a vlog going to Bachelor Live. If I had the ability to, I would. I would love to go to Bachelor Live. If I could make it to one of the ones, I would love to. So when is Stagecoach? Yes, and that would be another thing. Let's do the live vlog from Stagecoach so we can meet all the future Bachelor in Paradise and Bachelor contestants. Crystal and the Goose. Yes, Crystal and the Goose have split. I don't know any of the details. I've just seen that it's happened. So I don't know if there's any reason why. But Crystal and the Goose, they got married on Bachelor in Paradise this last season. And they have split up. Do you think Hannah Brown is still a chance? For Peter, I would say slim. Slim. But, I mean, maybe. I don't know. But I like slim. So, ultimately, though, Hannah Brown, I would say more likely for Bachelorette 2.0. And, like I said, I have a video that I'll discuss more on this. But it's just like, can you imagine the ratings bonanza that could be? Like, if you're someone who is a Hannah Brown stan, like if you love Hannah Brown, you're gonna watch. If you're someone who doesn't care either way, you're gonna watch. You're a Bachelor fan, you don't care either way. And if you're someone who hates Hannah Brown, or at least the idea that Hannah Brown would be the Bachelor again, it's too soon or something like that, you'd probably still watch anyways to see it unfold and maybe say I told you so. But Alea as a dark horse, I would say that's a really dark horse. So it's slim because Peter will always think he was third. Yeah, I know. But ultimately, I think what we're getting at here is with Hannah Brown and Peter, it still felt unfinished after the first episode, right? After the first episode and like the little bit of the second episode. And so it kind of is annoying that never got closure. And Ali Sachs, thank you so much for the super chat. There's a Bachelor Live in my hometown, and also Tammy is from my hometown. Guest appearance? Yes. Yeah, she might show up, or she might just show up as a viewer too, or maybe she'll show up and finally find love. So, yeah, Crystal and the Goose did split. Even though they just got married. But that's awesome. And are you going to the Bachelor Live? It'd be pretty cool. I mean, it'd be fun, right? It'd be a fun night out, depending on how much you're paying for a ticket, but and depending on the Bachelor. But I imagine they've got a sort of system in place that makes it fun no matter what. They probably have it pretty quality controlled. So no matter who you're getting, you're going to see people from the franchise, and it's going to be fun no matter what. Maybe Hannah B and Peter did get closure, though, but the producers just didn't show us the footage. Yeah, and it seems to be like there's always areas that they tease us with or they put into a preview or something, and they leave out. And they do that all the time. One, because there's only so much footage you can put into an episode. It has to get cut, but also I think if something doesn't meld with the storyline they want to tell, like with Sydney, there seemed to be Sydney came back. There was footage of her coming back, and we still haven't seen that. And Olivia, thank you for the super chat. I can't believe that Victoria is still not gone. We could pretty much tell from the previews, but there is still a piece of me hoping against it. Yes, I agree. But now we're at a point where, as far as I can tell, we'll look at the preview for this episode. I'll definitely look back at, is there anything left of Victoria that we still haven't seen? But now, as far as I can remember, there's nothing. So it's anyone's guess. She could make it. She could win the whole dang thing, but she could also go home. I would hope that at this point it's just too much. And typically, once you're getting near the end there, the producers gotta say something, right? I don't know. Maybe they're too invested in the drama. But if it's getting to that final 3 situation, hopefully they have a hand. And War Machine Rocks, thank you for the super chat. Is Chris Harrison the final rose? I think you figured it out. I think you did it. Peter and Chris Harrison riding off into the sunset. Chris Harrison comes up to Peter and is like, there's something you should know. Something we all just found out. I'm in love with you, Peter. And then he pulls out a Neil Lane diamond, puts it on Peter's finger, and asks him to marry him. You got it. Yeah, no. Case closed. End the season now. Who would fit well in Bachelor in Paradise for sure, and who would be a good match for Jasmine? I don't know. So, in terms of, who would be good in Bachelor in Paradise, there's a lot of women from this season who I think would make it. Alea for sure. We'll see Victoria P there. I could see Natasha showing up. But in terms of guys for Jasmine, most of the men that are going to show up are going to be from the Bachelorette. There will be there's always people from past seasons, but most of the guys that are going to show up are going to be from the Bachelorette. And I'm getting to a point where sometimes the matches are so unpredictable. Who could have predicted going into the season without any previews or anything like that John Paul Jones and Tayshia would be a match, and they'd be leaving the after the Paradise or whatever you want to call it as a couple. So, what do you think of Victoria P being Bachelorette? Did she ruin her chances? I think she got eliminated too early. And Stephanie Moreno, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the big super chat, the biggest one of the night, and for supporting the stream. She's saying, if you were in Peter's shoes from what you've seen, who would be your last 3 girls from this season? And why? Besides Victoria, Full of It, Hannah Ann, and Madison. That is... Oh, man. You've really picked a season of winners to go here. There probably would have been... it probably would have played out completely differently. Because from the outset, there would have been different like women staying and going, and sort of there seemed to be so many like cool women that got eliminated early. But ultimately, I can tell you one thing. I know for a fact that I'm a guy who would probably end the season somewhere around Fantasy Suite week. Knowing what I know about myself. I think at that point, just like there's nothing wrong with, the idea of like if someone chooses to explore, like intimate relations with multiple people to discover that sort of stuff. But knowing what I know about myself, I would be someone who would not be able to explore further than that with more than one person. I would probably just guilt myself to like complete rubble. So, I wouldn't make it past that part of the season. So I would pull a Colton. I'd like run away if the producers tried to force me. Like, I'd do a fence jump, that kind of thing. So that would I can tell you for sure. And also, one thing I will say, things I admired from people like Kelly. I admired her down-to-earthness and her like no-taking BS. That's something that I would probably find admirable. So that would probably be where I would be. So that's why I would never make a good bachelor. I'd probably also too like I'm very down to earth in terms of like, or I'm just very like chill when I chat with people. So Sydney for Bachelorette, you're hoping for a dark horse. Do you think that Chris comes to Peter with proof of the Victoria tea only? So I'm guessing you're talking about the very end there. That would only be if, one, she made it to the final two. Two, probably not. It's probably about something different. I think we're living in the Victoria moment right now. Yeah. Oh, did the show already happen? Yes, it did happen. The show's done. Hell no. Sydney for Bachelor. Hell no. So like it's an interesting thing though, because when you're considering Bachelorette, you probably want someone who is if I'm thinking from the producer standpoint, if you're looking for a lead, you probably want someone who isn't too stubborn in terms of like I'm not going to listen to the producers or doing stuff. You want someone who's willing to go along with anything that they say, but ultimately you got to know that if people go along with anything the producers say, it's gonna make for a mess of a season. No shade to Peter. And Emily, thank you for the super chat. Kelly as Bachelorette, my friends are saying Natasha. Kelly might be someone who I talk about in the video that I'm going to do this upcoming week on who could be considered for the Bachelorette, but Natasha is not one of those people. And Lauren West, thank you for the $2. Thank you for supporting the stream, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Who is the woman behind the glass door with Peter? That's a good question. We have no clue. Maybe there's a clue in the upcoming preview. It seems like someone with I don't know. That's a great question, but it's a mystery still at this point. How big is the potential for having a Bachelorette not from the season? I think it's a higher potential than what is usually the case. Usually, it's always someone from the current season. It makes sense. It's what they've always done. It carries the momentum. You have the story of someone not making it, not making their final love story. It's unfinished, and they get to have a second chance on The Bachelorette. But with how people are reacting to this season, I would say it's a larger chance than normal. I know Ari kind of came out of nowhere a little while back when he became the Bachelor. I think there were valid reasons for that, in my opinion. People who they wanted to be the lead who turned it down, and not having a good crop of other candidates. So definitely Tayshia. Tayshia is another possibility, but someone said it's Hannah Ann behind the glass door. You can tell by the hair length. That makes sense to me, but it's nothing we can confirm. What's your opinion on how things will end based off of what we see in the preview so far? My opinion is based off of what the storyline seems to be going for the season, which is Hannah Ann, Victoria. One of those two sleeps with, well, I guess at least one of those two sleeps with Peter. Madison gets upset. She leaves at the final 2 rose ceremony. And I know it's weird, and I know it sounds weird that, like, why would she stay past Fantasy Suites? And like to the final 2? And think about it, like, you're in this world of The Bachelor, right? And this is everything that you've been doing for 2 months. And Peter has this sort of thing. It might take you a little while to react. You might even be shocked. You might accept a rose. And then the more you think about it, you decide to leave. You decide it's unacceptable. You know? So that's a possibility. Peter's mom saying, God brought her to you. Yeah, that's also, it feels like a little, possibly a clue throwing in there for, like maybe that's the thing. The dog licking the ice cream, best part of the episode. Best part. Kelsey for Bachelorette, there's a possibility there. I think she's someone who could fall into very dramatic, but can also provide strong sense. We have seen her, be real, talk sense, and intelligent and all that. So, all right, we are going to come to the end of the stream here. If you've got any questions, get them out now. Otherwise, Bachelor Fantake has got to get up bright and early and start the recap. So, is the My Heart Is Broken clip from Peter in the desert the same as when Chris comes up to him, or two different situations? He's definitely wearing different outfits. And Adira, thank you so much for the super chat. Showbiz cheat sheet says people want Alea for Bachelorette. That's an interesting point. So definitely like social media following, people talking, like public opinion is going to be a big, and thank you for the super chat, by the way. Public opinion is going to be a huge part. It always plays a huge part in who they choose. Ultimately, you could want one person, but if nobody cares and everybody wants the other, they're going to choose with what's going to get them the most viewers. I would be interesting to see how that changes over the next little while. Because Alea, in the past, she's still fairly fresh in people's minds. I would also say the women tell-all is going to be a big factor in who becomes Bachelorette, because we see how one person gets a good edit on the women tell-all, and how one person reacts in certain ways. I think Hannah Brown, for example, carried herself very well in terms of a Bachelorette contender on the women tell-all, and that kind of proved that she could handle the spotlight. And Geraldine, thank you so much for the super chat. Rate how much you enjoy the season on a scale of 1 to 10. This is probably like the best night to ask me that, in terms of if like you were a producer or something like that, because this was one of the best episodes of the season. At the end there, like just the whole stuff with the Victoria business was like some drama that was actually engaging, and we got a bunch of romance possibilities beforehand too, so we got that good balance a little bit. And so I don't know, I would maybe put it like still at a I don't know, like four maybe, I don't know. And that's high marks. Normally it's I'll talk a lot on why I think this season, at least up until this point, gets low marks in when I rate this season. And it has a lot to do on where they focus stuff. A lot on drama, not a lot on romance. But there we go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining the stream. Super late to the stream because I had to start the episode. You made it just in time for it to end. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. If I also want to give a shout out to Wit and Rye. They gave me a shout out on their video. If you enjoy recaps and you want to watch people who actually have faces, go check them out. And we'll be back tomorrow with a recap and then a preview breakdown after that. And keep your eyes out, because I'll also have a video on Bachelorette possibilities. Who could be 1 out of 10? Who could be the Bachelorette? Who could be considered for it? So thank you all for joining us. Have a great night. Bachelor Fantake out.